back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So I am here today to do a book review, and the book that I'm going to be reviewing is The Hunter's Kind, which is the second one in the Hollow Gods series by Rebecca Levene. This book comes out in July. I believe it comes out on the 2nd of July. Yes, the 2nd of July 2015 is when this book comes out, so you've still got time to go out and buy Smiler's Fair, which is the first one, and then you can read it and then go out and buy this one as soon as it comes out, because they're both amazing. So let's get into this review. I was sent this for free from Hodescape, who are the publishers, so thank you very much to Hodescape, but that in no way affects my review. I'm going to tell you guys straight what I think about this book, and that's going to be really easy because I think you'll see in how passionate I am that I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely adored it. I thought it was even better than Smiler's Fair, which I raved about when I reviewed that one. So let's get into this. It's just, yeah, I can't wait to tell you guys about this. So one of the things that I really enjoy about this series, the Hollow Gods series, is that there are all of these different characters. They all come from different areas in this world, and each character kind of has their own backstory, but all of them are slightly tied together. So it's really interesting to see all of the connections that they have and the way that they know each other or interact with each other over the course of the 2 currently published books. I would say that this is kind of similar to Game of Thrones meets The Night Circus meets kind of grimdark, because it's actually very bloody. There's a lot of scenes of violence, there's a lot of scenes where you get to see the low life, the gritty side of things, and I really enjoy that. I like the fact that we get to see the really gritty side of things and we get to know all of these characters inside and out, both good and bad sides of them. It gives them more of a 3-dimensional feeling, it makes them more believable, and it's something I really enjoy personally. One of the things that is really interesting about this world as well is that all of the different tribes, all of the different cultures actually have to travel around within this world. It has to be a constant state of travel because there are a lot of potential enemies in this world who come out at nighttime or will strike every now and then, and the community has to move on. So there's a lot of different cultures with all sorts of different solutions to living in this very uncertain world. And at the time when we are focusing on the story, there's this period of unrest because it's believed that the moon god, Euron, or Ron, I'm not sure how you say it, is supposed to be rising, and people think that the moon god is rising and the sun god is kind of being defeated by the moon god, and the moon god is coming back. Everyone currently worships Mizhara, who is the sun god, because she has been kind of the ruling party for a long time and people have believed in her and they've worshipped her, but now it seems like there's all these subtle changes that are happening and certain creatures are coming out, and all of this indicates that Euron might be rising again, the moon god. So people are kind of questioning what's going on, no one really understands, and there are certain individuals in this world who are more important than others in terms of contributing to the rise of the moon god, and it's just so good, so good. I absolutely love seeing the gods in this world. I really enjoy it when gods influence the story, and we don't see a kind of direct influence in this book necessarily, but we do see the actions that people take in the name of their god, and that's really interesting to me because they believe so fervently and they believe so passionately that they are willing to go to the ends of the earth and do extreme things and do extreme actions in order to believe and resurrect their god. So there are certain people who do worship the moon god, of course. There are kind of smaller tribes or certain individuals who do preach about the moon god coming back, but mostly it's the sun god who is in favour with the general population. The kind of history of this world is that the sun god Mizhara and the moon god Euron were brother and sister, and one day they fought each other and the moon god was slain, and Mizhara has been ruling ever since then, so this is what people believe in. So the sun god is the one that most people worship, and anyone who worships the moon god kind of has to hide their allegiance and their beliefs. We see a lot of different mythical, magical beasts in this world. We also see the gods and their influence, and we also get to see runes and rune magic, which is all to do with the gods. And It's a really interesting magic system. There's some very cool bits to it that definitely are convincing in terms of tribe magic, as opposed to like, oh, I'm a wizard, have a magic wand. It's not that sort of magic. I really enjoyed learning about the runes more in this one. I felt like that was something that I didn't understand fully in the first book. A lot more was explained in this book and a lot more interesting stuff happened with the runes, and we kind of understood a bit more about how they were related to the power of the gods. This book takes place right after the ending of Smiler's Fair, so we pick up the storyline straight after, and it's really good that we get back into the action straight away. I enjoyed that a lot. We do have a small interlude at the beginning where we introduce a new character, which is great because she was a fairly kick-ass character who I enjoyed. We follow a lot of different characters over the course of this. As I said, it is kind of like Game of Thrones. There are a lot of characters we're following. Not as many as Game of Thrones, because obviously Game of Thrones is all to do with knights and various different houses, whereas this is more of a tribe-based society. Each of the different people that we follow have their own opinions, they have their own god that they worship, and each culture is pretty different to all of the other cultures due to the fact that most people can't travel very far in this world. It's not safe to go travelling on your own, so most people don't, which means most of the communities are fairly isolated most of the time, and although they do travel, they don't travel anywhere near as much as you would expect because of the dangers of this world, and therefore it's quite isolated. Each culture is fairly distinguishable from others. Some of the characters that we do follow in this include Swen. She is a new addition to the book. She's a character who is a young girl when we first meet her, but then we see her storyline jump to the present day and she's a lot older. The story begins by introducing her character to us, and we get to see how she came into the world and the things that she was raised to believe. She's a very genuine and interesting character straight away from the start, which is great, but she does develop a lot over the course of the book as well, and we get to see her put into some rather tricky situations where she has to make some hard decisions, and I think she did that really well. I found that her storyline was definitely one I could instantly connect with. Her character was convincing, her character was interesting to me, and I didn't have a hard time getting to know her or believing her as a credible character. Next we have Elfrida. She is the older sister of a very inventive younger brother, and she's quite a quiet type. She doesn't really like speaking because she doesn't feel that she has the ability to articulate her words well enough, and so she feels like she's dumb when she talks to people because she can't get her words out. So she's quite silent most of the time, and the only person she really interacts with on a regular basis and talks to is her brother because they have a great connection. Her brother kind of makes up for her strong silent type with his flamboyance and his creativeness. He's definitely the inventor type and he loves to get attention. So the two of them are quite an interesting pair. Her character was definitely one that took a little longer for me to adjust to because she is the strong silent type. She doesn't speak a lot and we don't see all of her thoughts straight away. She doesn't reveal a whole lot to us straight away, but throughout the story she does go through a lot of changes in her personal life, and that forces her to confront some of the problems and some of the issues she's been dealing with and kind of come out of her shell a bit. So I really enjoyed her character once I got to know her, and I think she's an interesting one to read about as well. Krish is one of the main characters who we did meet in Smiler's Fair. He was a goat herd when we first met him, but since then he has embarked on a rather crazy journey. He's come across a lot of new things and a lot of new developments that he would never have anticipated for his life, so that's really interesting. He's thrust into some of the most difficult situations where he really is kind of up against a brick wall, not knowing what to do, and he has to make some really tough calls, and some of the decisions that he does end up making are not necessarily right because there's no right decision. So there's definitely things that I feel like will haunt him for a long time and will play on his mind for a while, so I'm really interested in seeing how his character develops. Krish's story is always great because I already knew that I enjoyed him as a character and I liked his personality. He is charming, he's fun, but he also kind of doesn't really know a whole lot about the world. I mean, he was raised as a goat herd, so he has to kind of learn as he goes, and I loved seeing the development of his character for that. He's not always aware of what the best move is for himself, so sometimes the situations that are surrounding him can actually run away with him, which leads to some rather crazy, tragic, all sorts of craziness going on. So pretty interesting to watch. Then we have Marvin. Marvin is a character who I didn't feel featured heavily in this book, whereas in the first one he was a lot more prominent, but he's a pretty interesting character. He has a very shady backstory, and he's quite a dislikable character for various reasons as well. So I always enjoy reading his parts because dislikable characters I think are quite interesting to get down and sort of see why they are this way and understand them more. His story was definitely developed a lot in Smiler's Fair, the first book, which means that because things take a different direction from what he was planning in this book, and his goal is kind of completely changed, he doesn't really know what to do with himself, and he's a little bit lost in this story. I found it a lot easier to sympathise with Marvin in this book as opposed to in the first book, because in the first book he's sort of portrayed as this very nasty character with a lot of dislikable traits, whereas in this book I feel like he was a little bit out of his depth, he didn't really know what to do with himself, and therefore you could easily sympathise with him and understand him a lot more than in the first book, so that was an interesting character shift. Then we have Dae Hyo, or Dae Hyo, I'm not sure how you say that one, but he's a really great character. He was a member of the Dae Tribe who basically have been eradicated by another tribe that invaded them and killed a lot of them. So he's one of the only surviving members of this tribe, and he's one of the only people who actually wants to fight to bring his tribe back. His tribe was killed by the Brotherhood, who were a band of rapists and murderers who are supposedly servants to the moon god, and he wants to fight against them, and he doesn't agree with the things that they do. He's very, very bitter over the fact that his whole clan was basically wiped out by the Brotherhood. He is constantly dealing with the loss of his kin and seeking to find new kin to kind of reformulate this clan, constantly striving for redemption for his clan. He also struggles with alcoholism, and he kind of has a hard time of post-traumatic stress disorder and kind of coping with the loss of all of his friends and family, as you would imagine, because it would be pretty terrible if you lost your whole friends and family in a single attack from the Brotherhood. Despite all of his flaws, he's actually a very, very loyal character, he's very reliable, and I do really like him as a kind of mentor character to one of our other characters. I think he's a great addition to the story, and I really enjoy his parts whenever I read them. He's kind, he's fierce, he'll defend you to the ends of the earth, and that's the sort of character I like to read about. Someone who is definitely, you know where you stand with them. He's either really happy or really mad, and there's no in between with him. It's kind of like the flip of a switch. I really admire his resilience as well, because throughout the course of the book he has many opportunities where he could completely lie down and roll over and give up, but he does fight on, and I really enjoyed seeing that. Then we have Eric, who is my favourite character. Eric is definitely my favourite character of the whole series at the moment. I don't know what it is about him, I just find him really likeable and really relatable, which is a bit weird to say because he was a courtesan in the first book. Since the first book, his journey has gone in a whole new direction from what he imagined, as with most of the characters in this book. But he's so likeable. He's just a fairly nice guy, I think, and I think that's why it's easy to relate to him. He's got a very joyful nature, and he begins out the story quite naive, which is quite quickly tested. He's sweet, he's loving, he's very tender and nice. He's gone through a lot in the first book, so in the second book he's somewhat different to how he began, but he still retains that core of his personality, which I love. He is definitely one of the characters who not only has a great personality and I find easy to read, but also his storyline is one of the most interesting ones in the book to me, because he's in an entirely different situation to most of the other characters, and no one really knows where he is, so he's kind of completely isolated and on his own. And his storyline is really interesting. I think the whole concept of what's going on with him I find really fascinating, and I think he is just so good as a character. I really love his part, so I think he's definitely the best character in the book in my opinion. Although they're all really fantastic, he's my favourite. Then we have a few other characters who are kind of less major, but they still play important parts. We have Olfemi, who is a mage, and she's trying to assist Euron to come back by awakening the runes and hopefully fulfilling her destiny. She's a little bit dislikable, but she's quite useful, so she's a pretty interesting character to keep around because she's quite useful in certain situations, but I don't actually like her as a character. She's a little bit stuck up sometimes. Then we have Vordanna and Jinn, who are a mother and son. The son, Jinn, is a preacher of Euron's teaching, and he goes around the land preaching about his god and the return of the moon god. But he actually kind of has a moment within this book where he really has to question himself and really has to question his dedication to this god whom no one has seen for hundreds of years and no one believes is coming back except him. Then we have Sanki, who is a Senu, and that is a completely different tribe. He believes that he has to kill Euron's heir, so he is on a mission to hunt down the heir. We do know who the heir is in this one, but I'm not going to tell you guys. He's quite fat, he's quite incompetent, not the heir, Sanki, but his journey forces him to confront some harsh realities that he wasn't aware of. He gets told some things that are definitely not what he was planning on, and he has to question his whole life and everything he's ever been told. So he goes through some changes as well. And then finally we have Rune, who is a huge bat-like creature, and she's definitely one of my favourite characters as well. She was once a servant to the moon god, but now she is being kept against her will, and she speaks in kind of archaic language. She's very old-fashioned and very noble and very... She's just a great character. She comes out with some great lines, and her actions are really majestic all the time. You just feel like she's very noble and majestic whenever you talk to her or read about her talking to a character. And of course she longs for nothing more than her freedom from the people who are keeping her captive in order to serve her god, who she believes is being reborn and rising up again. The pacing of this book I felt was wonderfully done. It read really easily, I got through it really quickly, and I very much enjoyed reading all the characters' sections. There wasn't a single character that I hated or didn't enjoy when I got to their part. They were all interesting in their own way, and they all tied together in various ways, so that's great. The last 150 pages as well were just utterly wonderful, and I absolutely adored that section, so that was really good. Overall, I would say that it has characters that are great, it has a plot that is great, it has world building that's great, the pacing is great, the style is great. My enjoyment levels were like amazing, so it was just such a good book. And if you've not checked out the series, I don't know why, I think you guys should. It's awesome. Already want book number 3 and 4. I believe there's going to be 4 in the series. There might be more than that, I could be wrong, but I already am waiting eagerly for book number 3 to come out, and of course book number 2 isn't technically out until the 2nd of July, so I'm going to have a bit of a wait, but I know that as soon as it comes out I'm going to want to read it, and I can't wait to pick it up. So I would love to hear your thoughts if you guys have read Smiler's Fair, if you guys are planning on picking up this one, or you've read it because you're watching this video after it's been released, then let me know your thoughts. I would love to hear them. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all very soon in another video. Bye! Me and you gonna have a little chat about the